Descent into Darkness, a Call of Cthulhu campaign. Hello and welcome back to Deathwatch's Call of Cthulhu campaign, Descent into Darkness, Season 4. This is Episode 13, and I am Keeper Travis. And today we return to the ancient city of Sana'a, where Mr. Wentworth and a few of his companions have traveled inside. Meanwhile, Mr. Stanton, I believe, has stayed out with the rest of the expedition in a small little camp you have outside the walls.
Yep.
Before we get into it, let's get an introduction from our investigators.
I'm Brandon. I'll be playing Bartholomew Wentworth today and always.
I'm Chris. I'm playing Charles Stanton, big game hunter and guide for this expedition.
And Mr. Thompson, played by John, won't be joining us again today. He will stay in the camp with you, somewhat shaken by the exposure to those distant artillery fires. He has a far distant look in his eyes.
That makes sense. Got some shell shock going on, some PTSD.
Yeah, I think he actually has a phobia to loud sounds because of that. Anyhow, so Mr. Wentworth, you travel beyond the gate that guards the road from Hodeidah and into the streets below the great tower houses of Sana'a. There are thousands of them, each resting on a foundation of basalt or limestone, with the upper stories primarily comprised of fired brick. And you're gonna like this, Brandon. Rammed earth.
Trust me, I read.
Gypsum is painted at the edges of the windows with no two windows looking the same. There's sort of a personality and an artistic expression in these windows on each of these houses. Some have stained glass that sparkles in the morning sun. Aside from the tower houses, there are many bathhouses and mosques, both with minarets and without. You begin to collect curious children who follow you along, your small group of companions. Let's determine who that was real quick. So we had Wentworth. Thompson was going to go, but he's a little shell-shocked. Dr. Francis Morgan
And Curtis Cooper.
Wanted to come.
Yeah. We didn't bring Nigel Stedford because...
Bowman.
And
Bo Whiteman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Huh.
Mr. Arbogast also insists that he remains by your side, sir. And Jackson Elias.
Yeah.
Did we already say that?
Yep.
But all the rest of Stanton's men stay with him to tend to camp matters.
And if I see him, I shoot him.
On site.
Right.
And I believe the reporter guy went into the city proper just to poke around.
Okay, so yeah, these curious children are following you along, at least until their minders call them away. Those who speak Arabic can hear their excited babble, be it more forward shouts of, "Who are you?" or snatches of conversation as they try to puzzle it out for themselves. One of the children asks, "Are they Christians?" To which another child says, "God blacken your face, Hassan. Christians carry crosses." There's also a group that passes your camp. It looks like school children. They wear kind of like a funny round hat with just like a little point at the top. But they're, curiously looking at you. And of course, Francesco is young enough that seeing other children, they have their own little secret language where they're like looking at each other. But these young Yemeni children call out in their traditional greeting, As-salam, Makalam. And despite his confusion, Francesco seems pleased to be the center of so much attention. He doesn't quite leave to go up and say anything, but he shouts back, "Salami pastrami, my name's Francesco." And but then they move on, they have a minder there.
Oh, if he wants to go after him, I'd let him off the leash.
Yeah, he does, but, he speaks English and Italian, and they speak Arabic, so they just kind of... But they're very excited, but eventually the teacher calls all these Yemeni children to move along. He's got a switch in his hand that he brandishes. So, Mr. Wentworth, up ahead you see an open public square set before yet another gate. This one is within an even more imposing wall than the one you passed to enter the city. You can kind of see a section of it on the splash screen there with the Sana'a postcard. That's the old city wall, which is a little bit taller than the one you passed at the road to Hodeidah. Okay, again, you pass guards without incident, and you are in the old city. Here there is a watercourse, and beyond you see a warren of bazaars. The streets smell of incense and coffee, but underneath, as usual, less pleasant smells of a city. The streets are wide enough for 2 laden camels to pass each other, and they meander amongst the bazaars and stalls and tower houses. And the tallest of the tower houses you see is the Imam's palace, which is like 7 stories tall, and none of the others quite reach this height. You expect, given that the guards at the gate had sent a runner after you came through, that the authorities know or will soon know of your arrival. And now that you're here, there are several tasks that need to be done in Sana'a, and I'll list them for you. It would be wise, and what you've been preparing for, is to obtain the blessing of the authorities in this land before you continue, because if you travel without their awareness, if some soldiers come across you, they very well might consider you to be, a British contingent in their lands, or in a more friendly consequence, they would try to extract money from you in the way of unpaid taxes for traveling along roads and what have you. Also, food and water should be replenished at this stage. The biggest and most expensive task is obtaining enough camels to ride and carry your supplies. According to your conversation with Stanton, the current estimate will mean 27 camels for riding and 18 for cargo. That does not include camels for water, although Stanton thinks that you should be okay with just watering the camels as you find an oasis or a wadi.
Until we get to a certain point.
Yeah, they should be able to make it without having to carry water at this stage. Also, some time once you have the camels should be given to instructing the members of the expedition on how to ride a camel. Probably learning yourself, I would expect.
Can't be much different from riding a horse.
It's a little different. If some international favor is to be offered to the Imam by Dr. Andrews, he said he would send word to the city. Yeah. So you'll need to track down where one might receive such a message. Looking around you, as I said, it's like stepping back into an era gone by, and you don't even see indication of where that would be. But they must have it somewhere, because the Ottomans were here, and they must send communications to their troops out in the field somehow. So yeah, you are standing amidst the old city, people streaming around you, giving you looks.
Okay.
What would you like to do, Mr. Wentworth?
Are those children still following us?
They peeled off. They would follow for short distances. When you went into the old city past that inner gate, they were left behind. But there are more children that are equally as curious.
Yeah. Well,
staring out of windows.
So, I guess that's my next step, is to just ask somebody where I go to get to send and receive messages.
Okay.
Telegrams or whatever.
All right, let's begin with a credit rating or appearance roll.
Okay.
I spell Francisco's name different every time. Now the spell check isn't even recognizing it.
Okay, a successful appearance.
So there's a man with a camel laden down with goods, traveling towards the gate that would lead out of the old city that you hail. And, he was looking at you to begin with, but he's surprised to hear his native tongue come out of your mouth, but also pleased at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know enough by now that it's, peace be upon you.
Right.
And he says as much back, and then you pose your question to him. And he gives you some somewhat confusing directions to a house that was sort of retrofitted to be an office for the Ottomans that was here, and they had a wire running there.
Okay.
And a telegram machine. What's your navigation? I think you could probably do it without a roll.
Like 3.
Oh, I thought you had a good one.
I think you might be thinking about John. He usually
John
has a good navigation.
Mine's 15.
Yeah, you can roll that, or you could go for a hard intelligence.
What if I, pay one of the children $1 to lead us there?
Well, this man, after giving directions, is already sort of looking at you expectantly.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I'll
Backsheesh.
give him some.
And that was for the information.
Mm-hmm.
If you want more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your help, sir.
Every time bribe comes up, I just imagine or remember that scene from Naked Gun where it's like, yeah, what's it to you? And they just start passing
I don't know
out
if I
20
should
back
tell
and
you.
forth.
Well, this.
Well, yeah, what's that to you? Well, it's going to cost you. Well, I'm kind of out. Will you spot me at 20? Here you go.
Well, you guys had set aside a certain amount of money for this thing as soon as you were aware of the concept, so
Yeah.
we can hand wave it and assume you pay the appropriate amount and ask them
Okay.
or somebody else for directions there, and you're led to a tower house that looks to your untrained eye like the other tower houses. They're identified more by the locals by these unique windows and just their general understanding of the layout. But there you can see some of the trappings, retrofitted sewer pipes and things like that running down from the upper levels that give the indication that it's had some sort of modern refitting. And when you go in there, it's partially a cafe and maybe like a boarding house, you would think, although to your Western eyes, it all looks very strange. It's not laid out in a similar fashion as you would see at home. But he greets you, peace be upon you. What can I do for you today?
I am expecting a message.
And your name, sir?
Give him my name, Bartholomew Wentworth. I'm expecting a message from the United States of America.
Bald eagle cries out. Yeah, he's got like the post office box, all those cubbies behind him, and he goes and he looks under the Arabic to where you might be located, a message for you, and he hands you a telegram from Dr. Andrews, which is brief as telegrams often are, that merely states that a American and Italian ambassador are already on their way from Cairo to Sana'a. The Italian ambassador has agreed to a declaration of friendship on behalf of the Kingdom of Italy. Now, you're not a politics guy or a statecraft fella, so you have no idea what a declaration of friendship even means, but it is something you can say when you're before the imam or his, if he has like a minister, whoever you end up talking to.
Yeah. Okay.
Americans of this time were a little bit more hesitant to just make friends with anybody.
Right.
So your retinue are, taken with it the sights and the bazaars, because you pass them down every street, so they stop here and there to look at things.
Yeah.
Unless you corral them. So they're just left waiting outside the front of this place.
Okay.
But lodging can be obtained here if you had a mind to stay in the city.
Okay. I mean, I guess we'll see if we need to.
Okay. All right, so you can check that off the list. What's next for you, Mr. Wentworth? All right, let's pause there for a moment and jump out to the camp outside the city walls where Mr. Stanton is observing his men and those of Wentworth's group that were left behind, namely the two geologists and Nigel Stedford. And you're just sort of idly watching this occur. One of the geologists had gotten roped into a game of Mexican Monte with old Victor. This was Mr. Brown, you think his name was. And you can see from a distance that it's getting heated from Mr. Brown's corner, but not so much from Victor. Victor's just sort of watching him over those. What has he got? A nice thick mustache?
Of course. A luxurious mustache.
Right.
Vincent, right?
Victor.
Oh, Victor
is your guy's name.
Of course he has a mustache.
Yes. He's got sort of an inscrutable look as he's just watching this Mr. Brown get agitated, probably from losing money, because it's not a cheat game, but it is rigged for the house.
It's a cheat game.
But you can see, like, Mr. Brown, he stands up and he's cussing Victor out, and you see Victor's hand kind of go under the little makeshift table he's got. But so far, he's still just watching this occur.
Oh, he's reaching for a gun.
Or something.
Yeah, I guess I'll walk over to it and I'll put my hand on, oh man, what was his name? The professor's shoulder?
Mr. Brown, this is... You've not interacted with him directly, but you've seen him and the other geologist as being real buddy-buddy with Bo Whiteman. So he's already, down a couple marks in most everybody in the camp's book just for being connected to Mr. Whiteman. Just walking up, getting closer, you can see the mannerisms of a drunk person in him a little bit.
Yeah, so I'll walk up and I'll kind of put my hand on his shoulder.
Okay.
And I guess I'll offer him a cheroot.
All right.
Just leave it be, Mr. Brown. You can never win with one of them at a game of their own. And I'll I won't shoot Victor a look or anything. He's fine to do whatever he wants as long as he doesn't cause trouble for the group. I'm just going to try to walk this guy away.
Okay.
Perhaps you could spend your time doing something a bit more, I don't know, fun or enlightened. You can explain to me your job over a glass of whatever we can find.
Okay, yeah, let's begin with his impressions here as you walk up. You can do credit rating or appearance.
Credit rating. Yes.
Well, you know, Americans are tricky because they're not as entrenched in matters of class, as some other people. You've known a few people who will just ignore it, all indications of a higher level of breeding or higher station or higher rank, and continue running their mouth. Perhaps part of your problem with Americans in general. But he is actually taken with, because you have quality gear and a bearing that is important. And he's like, oh, I'm glad you said it, sir. You're quite right. I shouldn't have got involved with that game anyways. I went against my better judgment. And yes, I would happily take a drink and, what did you call it now? You offered him a cheroot.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those.
Pretty sure. Well, I mean, it's tobacco, like bread-winning crop for the Americans. They probably got it all. But yeah, you might not know.
Yeah, he'll follow you to where you lead him.
Yeah, just back to where I was sitting, idly waiting for these yahoos to get back from their meeting with whoever. Right. So, but yeah, I'll just have them sit down and start regaling me with what his job is, essentially.
Yeah, and he does launch into a very dry explanation of, markers you can see in the terrain for what might be a good place to prospect for oil and what have you,
That actually might not be that boring to me.
Yeah.
Because while Stanton might not be oil-minded, he might be kind of pissed that he's cut out of Bowman's...
Right, that little thing.
Scheme. So he might actually pay attention to this.
Yeah, so he gives you a basic rundown of how he does that and what they're looking for. And, of course, we'll be making more frequent stops as the journey progresses, as we had worked out with Mr. Wentworth to actually get out there and prospect for this stuff. Right now, I'm not really seeing too much, he says, He's talking about, because I'm speaking with no knowledge, like the striations in the land and whatnot. And sometimes if you get to the right place, you even see it bleeding out of the earth, and then we'll know we really struck that black gold.
That's another thing that Stanton will have. He might actually start taking out a piece of paper and writing down and trying to pinpoint about how many more stops he's thinking that he's going to make. Because I'm going to go back with, we're going to be on a very tight leash as far as scheduling goes, as rations and water. Once we actually hit the desert proper, we only have about 4 days out before we start dying. So it's very important that I get this information from you.
Well, you got two options, because he will start to clam up. So you could rely on a skill, or you could just keep handing him more to drink, and you don't even have to make a skill roll.
Francesco, fetch one of those
All right.
those secret barrels that no one wants me to know about.
So you get some more whiskey there, and he gets to a level, and then he stays there, right? And he's going to be there until he passes out.
Yeah. Well, if he's a professional alcoholic,
right?
He probably gets more righted.
But he's like, well, as I understand it, it's all been, arranged. It's in the contract. We get X amount of time per day, every day, if needed, just not until the later part of the day. If, I didn't look at the contract myself, but I was given to understand, because I was quite concerned that if all we're doing is, riding camels, how are we going to find this oil that's supposed to be out there? So
Indeed.
So, I think they said something like 4 hours each day. And, of course, if we see something interesting while we're riding, I think it would be in your best interest to let us stop and have a look.
My best interest.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you're getting a cut from all this oil money, should it be found or not, but if you want more of it, then that's your best interest, right, sir?
Indeed. The common characteristic with all my characters is the old eye will start twitching.
That's how you know that the soul of Chris inhabits this one. And, it's like my dad always said, aces in their places. We'll find the oil and we need X amount of time, and it's your job, sir, and Mr. Wentworth's job to give us that time and make sure we get there in one piece.
This Mr. Bowman that you work for, what type of fellow is he? What's your take on him?
Oh, he's a real southern dog. I don't know if I like him too much, if I'm being honest, but he's got a good track record, no doubt about it. If there's anybody in Standard Oil who can find it, he can.
How long have you been working for Mr. Bowman?
Just the last couple of years.
Anyone that you, in his current crew, that has worked for him longer?
No, they're all been there about as long as I have, now that you mention it.
I see. So he likes to switch you guys out rather frequently.
I guess. I don't know much of his history with the company beyond it. I just was hired within the last 5 years, right out of college, in fact.
Well, thank you for your information, your regaling me with your expertise, Mr. Brown.
Thanks for the whiskey.
Yeah, I'll pour him a shot for the road.
Yeah, and he just sits in this chair or makeshift chair, just sort of looking bleary-eyed at the desert ground for a little while. I think he's quite forgotten since Victor is out of his drunk radius. He couldn't even see him. Mm-hmm. But you've seen a lot of men here. If Victor was close enough and his gaze happened to fall on him again, he would be up and causing trouble.
I will go find Victor.
Okay.
And Mr. Brown's rather in his cups. Victor, it'd be wise to just stay out of his range. I don't feel like anything happening outside these city gates.
Okay, boss.
Thank you.
He's just chopping something up now, prepping up for lunch or whatever.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was never going to do anything. We're just sitting here. Cooking.
All right, so back inside the city, Mr. Wentworth, as you're trying to you're kind of at a loss with Mr. Thompson refusing to come in and handle some of these matters for you, particularly negotiating for camels.
Right.
And some of the stuff that needed to be obtained.
Yeah.
As to what to do. But so you just take a moment in that cafe to gather your thoughts, but soon enough a man enters wearing more official dress, as near as you can tell. Of course, all the signs of his office don't make any sense to you because you're not entrenched in the culture. Mm-hmm. But he is flanked by two soldiers. You know soldiers anywhere you see them.
Yeah.
And he gives the traditional greeting and asks, "Are you the leader of all these foreigners we have in our city?"
I am.
"And what is your purpose here, if you don't mind my asking?" Actually, I don't think he says that. He's just more blunt.
We will be performing an expedition in what you call the empty quarter, right? Empty? Is that what?
Right.
Empty quarter. Scientific expedition and exploration.
Well, my name is Fad al-Edrisi. I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Pleasure to meet you. I'm Bartholomew Wentworth.
Pleasure to meet you. I know you're here to seek out permission to undertake this expedition, I presume?
Yes, that's true.
Well, perhaps we can discuss this matter in more comfortable quarters than this. Would you care? And if you have attendants, you may bring a couple, too. We can discuss this elsewhere.
That suits me right down to the ground, sir.
All right, so you follow this Fad and his two soldiers into the palace grounds, not quite into the tower house that is the Imam's palace, but into an adjoining lower building that has many maps laid out that show the current political borders around Yemen. And you can give me a spot hidden as you're looking in there.
failure.
Okay. So yeah, he. Which of the two people did you want to bring with you?
Well, Arbogast will come with me, right? So I guess Bo.
He might not even technically count as he's a manservant.
Yeah, so I'll bring Francis Morgan and Whiteman.
If you make him being there as a faux pas, you can just, I didn't count him as a person. That's
right.
a cultural difference. Excuse me. Okay, so Bo Whiteman and Dr. Francis Morgan?
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, they're sitting there with you, sort of looking around, but taking your lead in this, as this Minister of Foreign Affairs is talking only to you. And you get the impression that he's treating these men as though they're your serving men or something like that, which if Mr. Whiteman had an inkling of, he might get indignant about that. But since he's blissfully unaware, you can just seat yourself, and they kind of sit in some chairs or, cushioned couches along the wall away from this table that you're sat at. And Fod has one of the soldiers begin to roast coffee beans in a fire. And it's pretty silent while he goes over some papers until that coffee's done being roasted and brewed, and then you guys have your first cup, and then that's when he begins, speaking. So you didn't think it was wise to send advance warning of an expedition into a country to which you do not belong, Mr. Wentworth? I'm not trying to be rude. We are always courteous to guests here in Sana'a, but it was quite alarming to see a group of your size come up outside our wall. You're lucky they didn't fire on you.
My apologies. I am afraid I am ignorant of your customs, and I meant no offense. In fact, that's why we decided to camp outside, so that we didn't cause any alarm. But I assure you, we have no ill intent here, and if I'd known your customs, then I certainly would have sent some word ahead. I'm afraid this is my first expedition of this sort, so I have still much to learn, I see.
And what, again, did you say was the source, the goal of this expedition?
Well, and then I'll basically just, lay it out that, some archaeologists and some, journalists and varied assortment of different concerns are looking for a lost city deep in the desert. But in addition to that, we have, people who intend to study the migration of locusts. We have, people who are interested in prospecting for oil. And so there's varied interests in our expedition.
And to what benefit is this to Yemen, if Imam Yahya allows this? And he doesn't just say Imam Yahya. He's got like a longer name that goes on for a little bit, but I'll attempt to butcher it here in a second, but not right this moment.
Right. So I guess at this point, that's when I'll mention that, there's an American and an Italian ambassador on the way to make a declaration of friendship. And, Mr. Whiteman had also mentioned that there might be some benefit in regards to oil if it's found.
Yeah. So you can go ahead and make a persuade roll at this stage. And since you brought Whiteman, well, so you have kind of a couple points here you can try to lean on. So let us start with the psychology first, so you can see what kind of man this Fod, this Minister of Foreign Affairs, is. So you can see which angle. Very nice. Hard. So you kind of have like a three-pronged approach here. You have to find a lost city, one that he well knows was rumored to be filled with treasure and was destroyed by God, right? So you could go with that angle as treasure hunters. Another one is the academic angle, this archaeological expedition / the flora and fauna of the area, that sort of thing. Or you could go with this oil angle, which doesn't have much of an impact as you're looking at him, and you mentioned that like it doesn't quite register the significance, say, that you would have about hearing if you found like oil somewhere in your property. You would be like, oh well, they're somewhat ignorant of it still, So with that psychology, you do get a sense of piety from this man in the language that he uses, the amount of religious reference there is when you're talking to him.
Yeah.
So which of those, say, 3 prongs of those attacks would you like to lean on? Right.
Well, if he knows, the city was destroyed by God, then he might not want stuff from it. So I think the best card for me to play is to go the oil route, but have Mr. Whiteman explain
what it means,
the benefits of it, what it will actually mean.
Okay. So yeah, having Whiteman there to help you with that does give you a bonus on your persuade roll. Alternatively, you could lean on charm if you'd rather, because both of you guys, he would also help in the charm aspect.
Okay.
They might not see through it instantly like you do.
I am the wrong person for this.
Yeah, it was supposed to be Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed hearing that he was sick, because he's our face, the best I know.
But, it's just giving it a shot, If you don't fumble, then you won't have. All right. Was that including the bonus die? So that brings you to a 38 versus 15.
Yeah,
So you are kind of floundering there. The charm that you have is rooted in the American culture, this sort of rustic, do-it-yourself mentality that you have that is completely lost on him. Not only because you're speaking in a foreign tongue, but, it's a different storyline that got you each to where you are to this table. So you can see it's not having the intended effect. And so can Mr. Whiteman, and he steps forward and he says, if you don't mind, Mr. Wentworth.
Please.
It's like this, Fod, is that right? Is that how you say that? Okay. America, we're a young country, just like you all are here, but we're coming into our own in recent years. And if we find oil on your land, then suddenly you have the interest of a lot of American politicians, and the friendly interest, I might add. They'll want to make sure that the route to this oil that's here is kept open and safe. So whoever's bothering you today, I don't think will be bothering you on the day that we discover that oil. And all we ask is, right, he's doing that. But you can give me yet another. Well, no, we'll stay with your psychology. It does pique his interest, but you don't think Whiteman is necessarily really making the case that would sway his opinion on the matter, But he does receive all the information, and he says, well, I will bring it before Imam Yahya, and we will seek his wisdom on the matter.
Okay.
If you wish, you can lodge here until he deigns to speak with you.
Thank you. That'd be much appreciated.
And over the course of that, you had been prepped up by Nigel Stedford that most meetings of this sort go over the course of 3 cups of coffee, right? They're like ceremonial. So it concludes at the 3rd, and then you're free to either leave the palace grounds or seek those lodgings he provided.
Okay. Yeah, what time is, it's not late enough for bed, so.
No, you're getting, your stomach's starting to grumble for the midday meal, but.
Yeah, let's go someplace and find some food and then start looking around for those people we'll need to deal with when we want to buy all the camels and whatnot.
All right. So following the same path that you followed to find the telegram machine, you ask around for a few people where camels can be obtained, and most of them, they'll point you outside of the town where the herdsmen are,
okay,
where you can purchase them. Food and water isn't really a problem to purchase. You just don't know if you're not the guy to figure out if you're getting swindled by anybody, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, the water part's free because anybody can go for the whales. They're not precious about that.
Yeah.
And it's part of the hospitality to offer water to the stranger.
Okay.
So that can be obtained, no problem. But it does give you the opportunity to seek some outside help when it comes to the camel trading. If you wish, since you're going outside the walls, you could double back to your camp.
Yeah.
If you think somebody else might do better at that.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I just want to know who it is that we should go deal with.
Yeah, you get the name.
Somebody else can do the negotiation.
Mabruk is the name of the shepherd. Not shepherd, but what is it?
Herder,
the herdsman. Because you give like a rough estimate of how many camels you might need, and you're like, he's one who has a flock or who has that many or more, right?
Okay.
I was looking at what a group of them are called. A caravan I like,
Right, yeah.
but flock, herd, train. I was hoping that they had a cool one, like a drought or a...
Right. I like the wizard one. Conflagration.
Yeah.
So yes, you have a location for this herdsman, but you might want a better person to speak with him. Who are you thinking to help you in that matter?
Well, I'll go talk with Stanton.
Okay. So yeah, in the early afternoon, you see Wentworth and the people that were with him come out of the city and approach.
Yeah, so I just got some names of, people we need to deal with to get supplies.
Mm.
And this is the man out here somewhere who has a large number of camels that we can purchase. I just need somebody else to handle the price negotiations. As it turns out, I'm not very good at it.
Is Ibrahim already on it?
No, not yet.
He's slacking ever since he got that woman.
She's keeping him busy.
Yeah. Well, I'll have Ibrahim get on it.
Okay.
Yeah, they described it as him living in the foothills around one of the mountains, which is called Jabal Tayal. There's like these two mountains on the plateau that Sana'a is on. So that's west of the city.
While after I'm done drinking with that geologist, I would have started figuring out new calculations for the 4 hours a day part.
Right.
Now, if he does it real early in the morning while we're breaking camp, or, breakfast and breaking camp, I think that won't change much.
Yeah. Well, it just depends.
But if he wants it throughout the trek.
Yeah. I mean, you did have some knowledge that was part of what had occurred, because Whitworth, as far as I know, wasn't holding anything back. So you had some advanced knowledge, because I believe Mr. Thompson had made certain, as part of that negotiation, that they wouldn't just stop willy-nilly. It had to be
with that,
at a specific time and with consideration for...
All right, so I'm going to figure I already factored it in.
So the wiggle room will come as to when you decide it's unsafe, and like Mr. Whiteman says, no, it's not. We got time to do it. That'll be the argument.
I'm fine with this then.
Yeah.
Don't got to bring it up. All right. So yeah, I'll have Ibrahim get on it. He's always got a gilded tongue. I just got to chase him away from that woman of his. Nothing wrecks a man's drive and motivation quicker.
That's always been my experience.
So you just want to send him out?
It'll be him. I think I have a person that can speak.
Yeah. Well, I think Sala was like in the dual role of your Arabic speaker. You never specifically hired one that had the language quite yet. So I'm pretty sure.
It's not a bad idea. I'll send Ibrahim out with someone who can speak the language well enough.
Yeah.
And I'll also start having...
Mr. Stedford also knows the language. Of course, Mr. Wentworth does too.
But I'll also have orders to start trying to find someone who can speak local or tribal languages as well. Keep your ears out for that.
All right. Ibrahim goes off. We'll do... Who do you like better, with Stedford or with your doctor, Dr. Sala?
I don't know who Stedford is.
He's your Nigel Stedford. He's your doppelganger.
Yeah, send my doppelganger with him. We'll keep the doctor at home. Well, wait. He might know better the local traditions, huh?
Well, he's a different religion, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll send Nigel.
Yeah. So they go off to attend to that matter, and it's when the sun's starting to sink low in the western sky that some soldiers come out of the city to that camp there and summon you, to go before Imam Yahya.
Okay.
So it's the same two soldiers you recognize that were shadowing Fod, and they're, following you through the city. Again, they say you can bring 2 of your attendants, and they look over the camp with a critical eye. So who will you take before?
Well,
you see Curtis Cooper absolutely photo op. Get me in there. He's not saying anything. You can just see the need in his eyes, right?
Yeah, him and Whiteman will take.
Okay. So you march through the city, into the old city again, this time all the way inside the Imam's palace. And you don't really know what you're expecting. You're kind of thinking of these stories from 1001 Arabian Nights and how they would describe a sheikh's palace or something like that with all its riches. But that is not what you see here. It's much more subdued. You do see the riches of the land of Yemen in it, but that comes in different ways. It's more in the materials that are local here. But he does bring you into a broad columned room up at the highest level in this tower house in the Imam's palace, where you see a man sitting on or kneeling on a mat, right? So he has a very sort of severe look and apparent piety about him. He's not dressed in like a king's clothes, but rather a religious person's clothes, which kind of explains also his minister of foreign affairs' lack of interest in sort of monetary concerns and whatnot, you know. And he's kneeling there as you guys come in, but he raises to his feet when one of his guards, you know, shouts out the full title. You know, you stand before, let me find, as I butcher it, apologies in advance, Imam Yahya, His Majesty Amir al-Mu'minin al-Mutawakkil ala Allah Rab al-Alamin Imam Yahya bin al-Mansur Billah Muhammad Hamadan Imam and Commander of the Faithful, right, is what's given to you. And Mr. Stedford had told you that kneeling was not required and that the address for an imam was just imam in their name, right? But he's given this extra title because he's also found himself to be a king now. And he looks at you with, you know, features that are strange to you, but he has this apparent piety about him. And so he takes it all in stride and gives the traditional greeting, peace be upon you.
Yeah, I'll repeat that then. And, you know, whatever I've learned is the...
Right. And he briefly lays out what his Minister of Foreign Affairs had gathered from you, and that is that you seek to you seek to travel through Yemen into the Rub al-Khali to seek out the lost city of Irem. And he says, on that, I grant you my permission, as the Rub al-Khali belongs to no one. It is the anvil of God, although you should be advised that the Sultanate of Nej claims much of the desert, although I'm uncertain whether the Bedou there would honor such a claim. That will be your main concern. So by all means, go with the blessing of Yemen. But this should be an undertaking of Yemen in equal part, an undertaking of Americans. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you will take 2 of my Ufka troops and a number of porters and herdsmen that equals your own number of men. The porters shall be paid 10 shillings daily, and the troops will be paid 20 daily.
From the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Yeah, you get an air that this was definitely not a negotiation.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm picking up.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Although you're more than happy to try. Yeah. And he's speaking in Arabic, so a lot of this is lost on Mr. Whiteman. But out of the corner of your eye, like lightning quick, you see one of those guards draw his sword at his belt and start advancing towards Curtis Cooper, who has his camera out, and it looks like he's about to cut Curtis Cooper down with his sword. What do you want to do, Mr. Wentworth?
Yeah, I'll like, well, wait, you know, let's just relax. It's just a camera. It's not dangerous.
So the guard slows in his step, and he's like, the imam does not permit his picture to be taken.
My apologies. We didn't know. And I'll look to the imam. I'm very sorry. He's young and exuberant. He doesn't know your custom. He means no insult.
For the imam's part, he doesn't seem offended by it at all. But, you know, he's just sort of looking passively between seeing if his guard was going to cut down poor Curtis Cooper.
Yeah, Cooper, come on, put the camera
He's
down.
like, oh. And I had described he had these early sort of portable ones as well as his big stand-up one. It was one of these he had around his neck.
Yeah.
So he just kind of lets it drop and tuck it in his coat. And he's like, you know.
Yeah.
Mr. Whiteman just has a bemused smile on his face as he's watching all this. Yeah. So yeah, he once he's given his proclamation, as it were, as to what it was going to be, you know, he wishes you well, peace be upon you, and kneels back down, some sort of meditative pose there.
Okay. Yeah.
Forgotten.
Or I was going to ask him who will command his men.
Oh, that's a good question. He says they will be under your command. Just see that they are returned as safe as would be expected from such an undertaking. I am well aware of the dangers of the empty quarter, so some loss I expect will occur.
I will look after them as if they're my own. You have my word.
Okay. So yeah, you're dismissed from the palace. Again, you're offered to stay in the palace if you wish, you and your men.
No, it's best to get back to camp.
Okay. Yep. So he's go with God, and off you go with those 2 Ufka troops.
Okay.
So, yeah. So they look like, here, let me drag them out. So yeah, there's one and then the other. So they're very young men, although you do see the telltale signs of battle experienced. All right, Mr. Wentworth, so as you're walking out of the palace grounds there now with your 2 Ufka soldiers.
Yeah, what were their names again?
When you ask them, the first one says Bandar al-Jadi, and the next one says Bandar Hadi. So Bandar and Bandar. Bandar, probably.
Al-Hadi and Al-Jadi?
Right. Well, only one has the Al. The other one just has Hadi, H-A-D. They're on the cork board now.
Okay.
One of them informs you he needs to know when we plan to leave. I'll gather the rest for that time.
Yeah, soon.
Okay.
I don't know exactly when, but as soon as we finish gathering all our supplies, and we'll be off.
So Bo Whiteman is at your elbow, and he takes a few quick steps to catch up once you're done talking to the 2 Ufka soldiers, and he's like, so, how'd we do?
Yeah, so I'll explain to him. He said we have permission, but he insists that we bring an equal number of his own troops under my command.
Well, I don't know much about expeditions and what have you, but that doesn't seem like it'll be easy. I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Wentworth?
I think he wasn't negotiating.
Right.
So we didn't have a choice, but I think it could be to our advantage. These are men who know this part of the world, and they're used to this sort of terrain. And if we come across any hostiles, more rifles wouldn't hurt.
Well, I'm glad you caught that, Mr. Wentworth. When I saw the my heart sank. It's a rare occasion I come across a man that can't be swayed by money or things of that nature, but when I saw him, I saw such a man. So I think you made the right call there.
That was my sense of him as well.
Unfortunate people they are. They mess up the whole business. Can't be negotiated with, can't be convinced.
Yeah, some people want very little from the world.
Oh, it's not that I don't think he wants very little from the world. Make no mistake, I think he wants a lot. But as to what it is, I do not know.
Cannot fathom for the life of me.
King, heaven on earth, perhaps.
Well, being a religious man and seeing as how we're going to a city that was said in their legends to have been destroyed by God.
It's almost a blasphemy, isn't it?
A cynical man might say that if we do find anything, that the men that are coming with us are ordered to make sure that the stuff we find makes it back to him and not off with us. But, you know, that's a problem for us in the future.
All right, one problem at a time.
Because, you know, an expedition like this is bound to be dangerous, and who's to say if anybody will make it back alive?
Well, I have full confidence that with you at the head, Mr. Wentworth, we'll be just fine. Now that Stanton, on the other hand, you will have to keep an eye on him. I will reiterate once again.
I will keep an eye on him.
So before you return back to the expedition camp, Ibrahim comes back from his journey to the foothills of that nearby mountain there, and he says, as you can see from the result of his persuade roll, that he wasn't able to talk him down from 200 ahead, Mr. Stanton.
200 shillings?
200 U.S. dollars would come out to, I think, like 50 pounds, British pounds.
It's not that bad of a price. I was hoping for more of the Yemen exchange rate, though. I'll discuss it with Mr. Wentworth. We'll see if we have an agreement from him. Good work, Ibrahim.
Yeah,
Get back to that wife of yours.
Yes, boss. He says he'll move the herd on in 3 days, so we just have to decide before then.
Noted. I'm just extremely happy that we have no extra mouths to feed, and that all of my calculations can now be considered finished.
Yeah, so
You put the final period in the book and snap it
Heart.
shut. Done. Now all we have to do is journey.
yeah, so when I get back to camp, I'll go to Stanton and I'll say, Mr. Stanton, we've received the permission from the king
Excellent.
to undertake this expedition, and so we can be on our way. He only had one small condition, was really and that's about it. So
Well, I see that
good
you're
news.
accompanied by 2 extra men. They
Yes,
won't be coming with us.
they will. And
That's 2 extra mouths to feed.
well,
So
wait,
it'll be them and 25 more
yeah,
Yemeni
yeah,
herdsmen and porters and
The spirit of Chris will come upon Stanton, and his eye will twitch.
the king's condition was that an equal number of his men come with us, and
That included herders as well, right?
so this includes the 2 that are with him now, so it'd be 25 additional. So yeah, herdsmen perhaps, which you might have already sought out anyways.
Does
right?
that mean that we get their camels for free?
I'm afraid not. Matter of fact, I have to pay their wages.
Now,
I'll open up my logbook and
this is not unheard of in your experience, because you've been like India and all over Africa, right?
Okay.
So it's a way to extract money, basically, right? I mean, it's possible you didn't meet the man. It's possible he doesn't even care of the fate of these. He just wants to know how long they worked for, and that's what the ledger will be. That's what the balance will be paid at the end of it, right?
All right. So
that wouldn't be your impression of him, though.
Now I
cannon.
guess I'll change my answer. It's expected. These backwater leaders, lords, whatever you want to call them, will try to extort you for everything you're worth. I'll just be thankful that we have some extra mouths to feed, and he doesn't want half the gold in the damn kingdom.
Useful in your experience too to send into that particularly dark part of the jungle.
There's always There's always the added bonus that if anything looks suspicious, they make excellent trap detection. All the same, we'll have to feed them and water them until we get to that point.
Correct.
So, and the exchange rate for the cost to Dr. Andrews, you suppose, would be $2.50 a day for the porters, herdsman level, and then $5 a day for the 2 troops is what you're paying out.
Okay.
Getting a measure of the troops as you see them standing at his side. I mean, they're battle hardened as near as you can tell. Their gear's a little old, right? They're carrying those German rifles. And you've also, just looking at the walls, seen a lot of outdated battle type stuff, right? Like stuff that was, 50 years old and was obsolete by because like for all the impressive walls around Sana'a, they would just be pounded to dust if artillery was put on them. But yeah, they do have the air of competent soldiers, at least for those 2.
Okay.
Still, I'll inspect their rifles.
Right.
Just to...
Yeah, so they're like the 1889 model of that.
Was it a good gun? Or is it more like like towards the end of a war type where it's...
They're a good gun. Most of those, everyone I've researched from that era, it's later on after the war where they tried like the Enfields. They did some later on like Mark 5s and 4s where they became less reliable. Yeah. So like that would be a battle tested. They probably got it from Ottomans that had it, and that's why they have it now. So
I'll do a quick inspection of the guns.
You knew that. That's why you got all the extra ammo to trade with the Bedouin who also had it too.
So I'll give a good nod if their gun is well maintained, which it sounds like it is.
It appears to be.
A common failing on these older models.
So given the new amount of camels, a quick check with Ibrahim when you basically double the count, meaning, you got 54 camels just for riders, and then maybe another 20 plus for the gear. Although, given that these men won't have the requirements that, say, like Bo Whiteman had, they're unlikely to bring drills and kegs of whiskey or things of that nature.
That actually might be a good opportunity to, like, I know we don't have to water them now, but maybe prep for later in the desert.
Yeah.
So bringing like empty water canisters on the anything extra type of thing.
Yeah. So doing a rough calculation in your head, Mr. Stanton, you think Ibrahim could go out tomorrow and get the camels, and the locals will know how to ride them, no problem, but, you're uncertain of everybody else. And in a game mechanic sense, your ride camel is the same as your ride horse. Its base is 5%. It just checks are at a difficult. Now, the only time you make that check is when it comes to whether you stay on your camel or not when something occurs.
Yeah.
You have enough know-how and can learn it in like an afternoon to be able to get the gist of it.
Right.
So nobody will be racing them except for those who specifically have that knowledge.
Which I do not.
Right. But it makes sense. I mean, you wouldn't have bothered to learn more beyond the rudimentary. They don't have saddles as such. They have a sort of wooden structure that goes over the humps and is balanced there by these, what do you call those things? It's like two little wooden, like a ballast almost that hangs off each side, and you don't really straddle them. You kind of
sit
odd,
yeah.
And they don't really have a measured gait. They kind of meander this way and that. They're really uncomfortable at first. Overall, you would say they're more uncomfortable than riding a horse for the same time period, but they are much, much, much better in the desert.
So we can be out of here
tomorrow,
tomorrow,
it depends on how long you wanted to spend getting everybody some time to ride their camel around in this big open area outside the city, that sort of thing. The food could probably be arranged over the course of tomorrow, too. So you could depart. Today's the 28th. You could depart the morning of the 2nd, you think, quite comfortably. Or you could skip and let people learn on the road the behavior of camels and how to do that.
Yes, I'll be discussing this with Wentworth and all. Well, if we want to give them a bit of time to acclimate themselves to the camels, we'll be out here by the 2nd, or we could be out of here, Trev?
The next day, the 3rd.
Oh, so the 2nd is the skipping?
Sorry, you could be out of here. You could leave as soon as he brings the camels in and everything's loaded, so probably late morning, early afternoon.
Or we could be out
first.
Yeah. Or we can be out of here on the 1st and let them learn on the road.
Yeah, they can learn on the road.
I agree.
It's a long road. There's plenty of time.
I've also found that in some of these less civilized places, that the longer you stick around, the more chance for error occurs.
I had thought of that myself. It's best to be on.
All right, so there's a general sense that if you're there's two ways to go. You either bed down early and get a good night's sleep because tomorrow's loading camels and a long ride. So, or it's your last chance to cut loose and drink whiskey. And the camp breaks in different ways, and it depends on how free you are with that whiskey, because I assume it will be under your command, and you might close the tap at a certain point.
I will. I will.
There's a few people that push it to a certain level, particularly that Mitchell Brown, one of Bo Whiteman's geologists. Mm-hmm. There's kind of a stink about it, but
he's already drunk too.
Right. He woke up from being passed out for a couple hours by the time the idea that you should drink more started.
Where's the whiskey?
But more or less, the excitement of setting out covers it. And this, as I said, will take you off of, like the guided tour of Yemen so far. And now you're kind of going under your own direction. So the way this will work, Mr. Stanton, let's get over here to the Arabian Peninsula, is that you have a point you can aim towards, already traced out by Nigel Stedford's previous expeditions. And these are oases or wadis or villages, which are usually established around a well or a wadi that fills with water regularly. So that's kind of like your point. Now, how you go over the terrain from this point is really up to you, because you'll soon run out of caravan trails east of the city as the terrain becomes inhospitable quite rapidly. So you can see that tomorrow morning, after you load everything up, you have, as the crow flies, about a 107-mile journey to Marib. Now you expect, and this is your experience in deserts elsewhere, that as far as the camel's concerned, green shrubs to eat or tree leaves are water, basically. If they eat enough green, if you can get them out and graze them at the end of the day, then you don't have to water them but once, every 3 or 4 days. 5 even, although it'd be pushing it. So one of the things you know is that if rain falls, that's your time no matter what you do, because it saves you time in the end run to just stop, send out scouts to find
pooling,
like where the wall, like, because desert shrubs will almost instantly become green after a rain.
Okay.
And you get your camels out there and get a graze on because they won't have to water for days afterwards.
And it would also be a good time to set out any like canisters that collect rainwater.
Collect it, yeah.
Yeah, and you've seen in the previous journey in the trucks a lot of threat of rain, but not quite rain. So, but it is purported to be the rainy season. So at the beginning of the day, you can expect to cover 25 to 35 miles per day, and that is dependent upon your navigation roll. Now, since Stanton Expeditions has a navigator, you make that roll at a bonus, and I'll remind you that when you make a roll at a bonus, it does not give you an experience check, as it's not difficult enough to, so you could ignore him, his bonus, his advice on it, and just make it at its base to earn those checks. It's entirely up to you.
My navigation already has a check. I
There
like
we
to
go.
keep it that way.
So, failures on this navigation won't immediately stump you in moving forward. It'll just reduce the amount of miles that you travel. For example, you'll look out at the land and you'll see a lot of divots and terrain variation, but at a distance, because of atmospheric diffusion, it won't look as severe, right? And you'll have miscalculated by some degree, so that when you get there, you're like, oh, we got to double back because we can't get the camels up this, that sort of thing.
And then, like, as the heat of the day as well begins to... All right, so you want a navigation roll?
And then fumbles will sort of act as when sort of environmental camel-related disasters might occur.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Hold on. I'm not sure if I'm quite done with my explanation. So I had pointed out in our session 0 about the notion of exhaustion and despair as separate trackers. So every day the PCs and a few of the NPCs will make a constitution roll to determine how the riding goes for you, how well you handle it. And there's lots of times where you have to get up and lead your camel because they're not, if the hill's too steep, they'll just be like, nah. So you have to get off and pull them along. Sometimes you have to take what they're laden down with off and distribute it amongst people to carry, because if they're carrying the full 400, they'll just get to the barest of slope and just, couch themselves and hang out there. So there's lots of things like that can happen. There's also uphill travel on you guys when you're doing it that makes it more difficult. Intense heat, if it starts getting really hot, that can raise your exhaustion, and a good night of sleep will drop that level down. Despair is a more insidious event. If you're hungry, thirsty, or exhausted for a week without relief, it'll cause you a level of despair. If you're away from people, too, that sort of thing. But being rested, well-fed, and watered will reduce your despair level. The longer you are in that state, rested, well-watered, fed, it goes down. In the case of you, Mr. Wentworth, and you, Mr. Stanton, your upper limit is actually 2 weeks. So you guys are both... because of your various background, you in the deserts of Mexico and you with all your expeditioning, you have a higher capacity for being out and living sparse than many of the people in your expedition. So I think that does it for the basic explanation. So we can forward to March 1st. Ibrahim comes in early in the morning with the camels and the herdsmen. In this case, we got like 75 camels almost, so it's quite a large amount. And very rapidly, Stanton issues orders to start loading everything. Porters that are going to be joining your expedition come out with the Ufka troops, Bander and Bander, to start loading things.
Yeah, I'll just call them Hadi and Jadi.
Okay.
I think that'll be the best way
to remember them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's by late morning that you have everything cinched up, loaded up, and ready to travel. So you circle around the outskirts of Sana'a, passing the gate of Yemen, and traveling down that road that goes south for a little ways, southeast, and we'll see what your first journey looks like, your first day of journey here on March 1st. You can go ahead and give me that navigation roll, Mr. Stanton.
All right, this is with a bonus.
Okay. Very good. So with a hard success, you're looking at making 30 miles today. Let's map this guy out here. So you kind of get about there. Are you guys situated right? Did I bring you over? Probably not. I'm pretty bad at that. Oh, I did. Okay. With that bigger push pin being marked Marib, if you guys hover over, that's what you're angling for. So yeah, once you get out of the city and you see the lay of the land, you take a moment. And, every couple of hours you have to stop and do this to figure out the best path through this mountainous desert terrain. And most of it east of the city is kept green from irrigation. And as soon as that stops being the case, it rapidly turns to mountainous, rocky desert, although with many, many shrubs here and there that, stay viable with the smallest amount of rain.
Yeah, so I figure I bust out like a waxed or oiled, like, I don't know, maybe like a canvas map or something
Right.
more durable. And I'm always got that going and using compass.
Yeah, you're probably getting, you're taking the distance between, like a foreground peak and a background one and seeing how deep that ravine is actually going to be in miles when you get to it, that kind of stuff. And it does take a certain amount of time. And it's one of those tasks that can be frustrating, but like shaving, the only way to approach it is carefully and with due diligence, right? If you want a good shave. So it has to be done. And that's always how the day starts. And I don't know, Mr. Wentworth, if you're interested in this task at all or the expected, plan for the day or where you're going in the longer term.
Yeah, I figure it might almost be almost uncharacteristic if you were to take Stanton at first look, because I think he's very like professional and studious about it. Where one little degree off on the map could cost lives, and he takes that very seriously. But yeah, while I'm doing it, I'll talk, mainly probably angling my words at Francesco if he's curious and around, but for those that are willing to kind of sit around.
Yeah, you had begun a sort of education on letters, and I think some of the map stuff as well since he was there. So you're just continuing with the devices you use for navigating, showing him how it all works.
Yeah,
so,
I'll stay pretty close to Stanton
okay.
as we go.
Yeah, there's sort of a nucleus, I would say, that forms in this little morning meeting where you guys, take your breakfast and your coffee and tea. That includes Stanton and Francesco, probably Ibrahim every now and then
Bowman.
Bowman will come and make his appearance known. Mr. Wentworth and Nigel Stedford to offer his experience of coming this way before,
I'll also make it apparent, like if I wake up earlier than, probably not Wentworth, but most of the other people at camp, that will be when the surveyors will also be getting woke up for some initial whatevers that they're scouting or surveying that they want to do. And they'll also be like immediately, like we're breaking type of thing. And for the most part, I'll try to keep a rein on that and keep them from jostling or interrupting the march too much, but try to give enough breaks that they reach their 4 hours throughout the day.
So after he's done his assessment and you guys set off, he's picked a rather gentle downhill path mostly. There's a few stretches where you have to get off the camels and coax them, up some paths, but mostly it's just that you're going downhill until you get to the desert the whole way. And so you make some good time for that day, 30 miles. About midday, you pass a fallen tree and you see like a rusted axe still sitting in the stump. But next to it is a corpse, like a skeletal corpse with an arrow stuck in its eye. And this isn't a great sign. It's aged, right? But this just kind of means this is the kind of land where the Bedu might just stick an arrow in your eye or shoot you if they have the guns to do it.
Do most of them have guns these days?
A lot of them do, but they had a big archery tradition as well, historically. So,
well, at least we know the corpse is old. Most likely they'd shoot us in the modern era. And I'll get my camel moving again. Don't touch it, Francesco. Last skull you went poking around in had a spider.
So Jackson Elias brings his camel up next to yours during the course of the journey, and he says, Mr. Wentworth, Stanton lured me into this whole thing with a lost treasure and a lost city, and I'm a sucker for that sort of thing. I'm sure you might understand, but I never really got the why Like why Dr. Andrews become interested in that? What's the backstory, you know? Might be my next book, so the more details, the better.
I think, if I'm honest, he might not have been interested, and sending me was the best way he could not cause offense to the man who brought the idea to him.
Why was he concerned?
It's hard to determine what he's actually interested in, what he's not, and I'll lay out the whole story.
Was Dr. Andrews secretive about his involvement with the Hermetic Order of the Silver Twilight?
Yeah, he didn't necessarily advertise it on his door.
But he was sort of pen pals with Jackson. I don't know if he would have kept it back or not.
Yeah. Oh, no. With Jackson, he would have told him.
So that was the reason for the offense, is that this Lord Stourton was a member of the same order.
Right.
And he didn't want to.
And he didn't want to just say, I'm not interested. So a good solution was sending me. But he might have some interest. I don't know. He doesn't share it all with me. But.
So you give Jackson Elias the backstory, this Stourton figure appearing one day in Boston and giving a whole story about old expeditions to find a rem, and where one actually succeeded, but it was by a colleague of his, Ahmed ibn Mikhail,
right,
who actually found it. But then there was another figure that appeared, Malcolm Gaston, that was very interested in this. And it's at that point Jackson sort of stops you. He's like, so did you guys ever figure out who that was before you set off here? Or?
No. Did we?
No, I don't think so.
No, we didn't. No, I don't think we did.
Well, you give the impression that this Lord Stourton was somewhat worried about him getting to his friend. Are we going to run across them up ahead, do you think?
Yeah, he said to watch out for Gaston, who might want to harm Professor Ahmed, who we met in Alafon, right?
Right, yeah. Or who you will meet in Alafon.
Yeah, we're supposed to meet in Alafon, and that we need to watch out for a Malcolm Gaston who might want to hurt him for some reason.
Seems I would have heard something just in casual conversation if, or you would have, just in the city, if a bunch of other European-looking people came this way, don't you think?
Yeah, somebody else.
Did you hear anything in the city?
No. I think somebody would have mentioned it if there was another expedition, right?
Well, you say Stourton said he's a businessman. I've known lots of businessmen. Sometimes they just move on to the next thing. Hopefully that's the case. There's a little echo here to the previous expedition I was on where, we had some expectation that there might be a alternative or a competing expedition that we might have to contend with. That ended up not being the case. We had trouble within our own group almost from the get, but Malcolm Gaston.
Yeah.
I don't know him.
That was who we were told to watch out for.
So he says he begged off a meeting. He sent his driver, this Lord Stourton, and his driver just disappears. This occurred in London. Did you guys pass through London?
We did.
Was there any word on that when you were there?
No, I didn't hear anything about it.
Too busy chasing a beggar.
Yeah, so Stourton said he'd been approached by Malcolm Gaston, and he told him everything he knew, and then there was supposed to be another meeting, but he never saw him again, and it turned out to be an alias.
Right. Oh, so...
There was that, sorry to interrupt, there was that one guy who was going north of where we are.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Where you got the letter from your contact, your British friend. Yeah,
where he's like, there's another guy sitting off into the God's Hammer.
Let's see if I have it here real quick.
And I think I had Ibrahim look into it.
Yeah, and he said, well, because it had occurred weeks ago, that he looked at the manifests for getting across the Suez Canal, that their point of destination was somewhere in Jordan. So, and according to your contact, he didn't give the name Malcolm Gaston, but I don't have it right here at the moment. So if you didn't note it, it's a forgotten name.
Yeah. Was there a description?
He was described as an American.
So is that your guy's British?
No.
Okay.
Malcolm Gaston was American.
All right. So if
a wealthy American man.
I'm guessing Wentworth's up near me if we're trekking around.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll kind of interject and one of my contacts in Cairo, I believe, right, informed me of a American man prepping to go into God's Hammer. I had Ibrahim look into it. He said that he left across the what was the canal, Suez?
Yeah, the Suez Canal up into like
Jordan,
mandatory Palestine and Jordan, to where there was mention of a another site around. The name escapes me at the moment, but I was talking about it then. I just don't have it in my head. The Petra. So another site up around Petra.
But anyway, he got across the Suez Canal about a week before us. My contact was worried that he might be trying to, what's the word?
Maybe undercut your expedition.
Get a head start on us, but he seemed to be going into Jordan to another location that was rumored. But he was an American. I don't remember his name. Lost to time.
Yeah. Well, Malcolm Gaston was an alias anyways, so...
There's a good chance, though, that if this is someone that you're worried about, he could have crossed the Suez.
Yeah.
But came south afterwards.
That's true. We should keep an eye out for him because, this whole thing, and I'll tell Jackson, this whole thing started because this Professor Ahmed had sent a message to Lord Stourton and said,
he'd found it.
We have to go back. Something is going to happen, and I need to be there.
What is something? I don't like that.
But to ease your worries, Elias, about this Malcolm, due to the Bedouin influence in the area, we're going to be on a level of preparedness already. So a large group of Americans and whatever else have you will easily be identified by our scouts.
That is true.
Yeah.
Hopefully, anyway. We can only pray.
Just an unanswered question. Now that I hear the story in my mind, I know full well what you're capable of, Mr. Stanton. I have all assurance that everything will be quite well in hand.
Always, I believe that you're more than proper in asking these questions, Elias.
It's good you did because it had totally slipped my mind, and we might be in contention with somebody else on this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But in hostile lands like these, what's one more gun aimed your way?
Yeah, precisely.
Don't worry, Elias. You've weathered worse, I'm sure.
Yes, that is true.
This was second day?
This is
first?
You're still your first. This was a little while after you'd passed that skeletal corpse, and now you're coming on to where you might break camp. And at this point, Bo Whiteman, has started to point out some indication that he'd like to get down with his geologist and have a poke around.
Yeah, I'll cut off some of my men
to shadow him or whatever.
Yeah, probably about 4. Openly,
Right, yeah. Because that's part of the thing. He's supposed to keep them safe. And they just go poke around up in the hills and, they're looking at things that are beyond your understanding. And, Victor gets the mess tent set up and he starts preparing food. Although you'll soon get into the point where it's sort of every man for themselves, once the larger portions that he can prepare meals like that, unless you stumble across game or specifically go hunt something that you can work at.
We'll be feasting on camel till we're sick of it soon enough.
Yeah. But you're accustomed to Bahram Ibn Salah, Dr. Salah, setting up his telescope that night, which he does as usual. And you're just watching him, set it up to the normal spot where you now know he's, viewing some comet in the night sky. And he had mentioned a sign in the heavens of a supposed second coming of Christ that he assured you he didn't necessarily believe in, but failed to actually assure you of that.
Yeah.
But there's a curious thing as you're just looking at the men over the camp where you see Matvey Vanya just sitting there on a stump. He's Russian, got a head wrap, like bandages around the top of his head, and he's staring off into the night sky, and you just have this weird impression that somehow, some way, he's looking at the same point that Dr. Salah is through his telescope.
Mm-hmm.
Salah's looking down like this, where it redirects, through the telescope. But you see him just sort of gazing over, like into the night sky with a weird, sort of odd look on his face. Almost revelatory or ecstasy, something like that, But go ahead and give me a luck roll between the two of you. Not a group one, but an individual.
I knew that the trepanning was the answer to opening the third eye, but no one believes Johann. No. Aha.
Oh, very nice. So we'll give it to Mr. Wentworth, who only had a regular success. So as you bed down there on your cot, and you've pulled your blankets above you, and you just have the orange glowing coals of a fire, a personal fire if you had one, baking off a little bit of heat there. Although currently it gets down to about like 58, high 50s, so the blanket and the little ambient heat will be fine. But you see a shape in this orange glow moving, like a low rodent shape is what you really realize what it is. But when you see it in your peripheral, it's like immediately frightening, because that's always how it's been for me. If something's just like even a mouse, you're like, what?
Yeah.
But this is bigger than a mouse, and you realize that you're looking at a porcupine of some kind. You don't know. I mean, you could give a natural world or biology if you have those at a sufficient degree. If it's natural world or biology, or if it's natural world, it would have to be at the hard success level.
Hard natural world. Failure.
Okay. But that does meet your regular.
Yeah.
So you don't know what kind of porcupine it is. You just know that it is a porcupine. And a lot of times creatures that have sort of defense mechanisms they just don't care sometimes about other things.
Yep.
Right?
I would have experienced that with skunks.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So they just wander. He wanders right into like where you have your sack with your personal belongings and maybe a few morsels that you could grab a quick bite from. And he's just coming like right up to that.
Yeah.
Like unconcerned with you starting to poke his nose into the pockets and what have you.
Yeah.
Looking for something to chow on.
Well, yeah, I don't want him digging through my stuff, so I guess, but I mean, I can tell it's got some danger to it.
The porcupine's defensive posture is to kind of turn its rear end towards you and flare out all those quills.
Yeah.
So, but right now it's not making any sort of defensive movements. It's just looking for something to eat.
Well, I guess the safest thing for me to do then is shoo it out of there with my, fixed bayonet on my rifle and get some range on it. Say, go on now, get.
Yeah, he's a little persistent. He takes like a few quick steps back and like looks at you, turns his back towards you, and he's kind of hissing a little bit, Mm-hmm. But so far he's just right there. Both of you have got him a few feet away from your bag.
Yeah, so I'll grab my bag then and
move it out of the reach.
Maybe I'll take a bit of food and throw it into the darkness for him or something.
Yeah, when this porcupine feels the threat has passed, he turns around and looks at you for a time, but you can't really discern the expression of a porcupine.
Right.
So he wanders to somebody else into the camp, and later on you hear like somebody like yelling about it, but not getting hurt or anything.
Yeah.
Just it's somebody else's problem now, and you can put your hands behind your head and go to sleep.
What are the chances Victor carries a varmint rifle and we
probably he does, but it's not on your short list of meat you want to keep because it doesn't really taste that good. All right, so March 2nd, correct? New day, bit warmer. You can tell it's going to be than the day before, and we can begin with your navigation roll and the nucleus of the camp meeting around the fire.
Alrighty. Navigate. Bonus to what? Does pushing include bonus again, or is it just base then?
No, pushing's at the same thing.
What's the...
So it just means that you might make a decision that could either harm a camel or really impact the amount of progress you make for the day.
All right, push.
Okay.
Swear to God, roll 20. I swear to God. Swear to God. Hard success.
Nice. So it's another good clip for today. Another 30-ish miles or so. Kind of have to skirt around a bigger peak here. Like so.
So is that me like potentially catching like something that looked safer than it was, but it was like a gully or a ditch or something.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So after your short meeting in the morning, and after Mr. Stanton lays out the path for the day, although there's some a little bit more concern on his part under what the best way to go, but he finally arrives on something and seems sure from that point. You guys set off again. During the day, around the time you break for your guys' lunch, so everybody's down off their camels, and the experience of that is, the call goes up and you've been taught how to couch them, how to get them to lay down, and usually you can just sit up against them. They're docile enough that they act as a good backrest, while you take your break or whatever. But Dr. Francis Morgan notices a cave opening on the hillside that he doesn't think is like just a natural occurrence. And he comes to ask your permission. I don't think it'll take very long, Mr. Wentworth, but I'd like to go just have a gander in there, if you don't mind. This part of the world's not well explored by archaeologists, and there's a lot of ancient history here. You never know what you might come across.
How long do we usually stop for lunch?
That's enough to get rested, so it's like an hour about,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go with you.
Okay. Yeah, and what's his name?
Remember, we got to keep an eye out for snakes.
Right, of course. Curtis Cooper's journalistic senses were tingling, so, he sees the two of you walk up, a short hill there, and he comes running behind with his camera in tow. What are you guys doing?
Just going to go check out this cave here.
Can I come?
Sure, more the merrier.
So, yeah, you guys come to this cave opening, and you can see what he's talking about, although you didn't identify it at first. It had the look of being worked, although it's apparent once you're standing right up in front of it. Although, if there was, work in the stone, it's long faded by age. But inside is not like a cave system, but rather just a room that you might say is big enough for like 8 people to stand in comfortably. And in on the floor is set like a stone slab that's about 4 to 5 feet high.
So what you got here is this is the tomb where they buried Jesus. That's what.
Well, no, says Dr. Morgan.
Until he turned into a werewolf and
yeah,
pushed the slab aside.
This is a stele, is what they call it. Certain peoples would erect these as, like a marker to some event, or perhaps even a grave marker. You can see the writing on here. You can give a hard history roll on the off chance. Oh yeah, I happen to be an expert in this obscure empire of antiquity.
Yeah, right. Couldn't hurt to try. Where are you, history?
You can fumble and read the
failure.
So yeah, it has an odd looking script written on the whole face of this stele that you don't recognize at all. It's very strange and arcane to your eyes. But Dr. Francis Morgan says this is ancient writing called Ge'ez, but I don't speak it. I do know it belongs to the Axum Empire there in what is now modern-day Ethiopia and Italian Eritrea. Who knows what it says? I can't translate it, but probably left over from a time that they came over here to punish the Himyarites for killing Christians. But really, in the broader context of things, it was like a proxy war between the Romans and the Persians at that time. Romans wanted a foothold here. They sent the Christian Axum here and established it for many hundreds of years. Look here, and he points to the dirt, and you can see there's a number of coins scattered there. Silver, although tarnished. And it's difficult to make out what the inscriptions were on the coins, but you do see a cross on one end, on one side of them. Probably worth more than its weight in silver to the right person. I don't know how you feel about possible grave robbing.
Better leave it here.
What do you, maybe just one, Mr. Wentworth? You're not that superstitious, are you?
No, but, we're not in our country.
That is true. And he gives kind of a huff.
But, Mr. Cooper can take photographs if he'd like.
Well, the light's not right in here, Mr. Wentworth. I'd have to go get my other camera, and it might take a while to set up. So only if we got the time to spare.
We don't.
This would be a great picture for the articles, though.
Yeah, but that's not what we're here for. Let's stay on task.
Just so you know, I'm going to have to move farther on the axis of loyalty away from you than I was today. Well, so you guys leave the cave. Just it's a point of interest.
Yeah.
And Dr. Morgan can illuminate much of it. You know, this is from, pre-Jesus's time. So long ago, ran till about 5th century AD before things changed drastically here. He said much of the Himmerite kingdom fell into ruin for the simple fact that most of Rome and Greece converted to Christianity and they stopped needing incense that flowed through these lands. So it's kind of funny how that works out. But you guys return. The call is given to continue on.
Okay.
I like to think as we head deeper into the God's Hammer, Stanton's clothing will slowly start to look more and more native.
Right.
Right now he's in the pith helmet and the
You could see him from a mile away.
Yeah.
In his resplendent khaki clothes.
Well, yeah, it would be khaki, huh? Desert.
Yeah. Are you wearing shorts?
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah,
that didn't really get much sense to me, or make much sense to me to wear shorts.
Yeah, let's go through a place we've never been before with critters we don't know.
So in the second part of the travel, one of Stanton's men comes up to you. You think his name was Marco Ramiro, Mr. Wentworth, and he asks you if you were in the American Army.
Yes, sir.
And he says, my father was killed by Americans in the Battle of Manila. My name is Marco Ramiro. Americans killed my father. Prepare to die. No, but he's making conversation about it. And he wonders if you were involved with the Great War, if you fought in Europe.
I did.
Says my country stayed out of it. Wasn't my position. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it turned out those of us who were there had it covered.
All right. Yeah, we were neutral for the most part.
He's from Spain?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Spain is not much of a mover on the international stage anymore, are they?
No, but then again, I'm not very fond of Spain. They don't like me either. That's why I travel with Mr. Stanton. But I did, once upon a time, fight for them in Morocco. But they don't have very good leadership, if you want my honest opinion. They just sent us into trap after trap by the natives there. Damn near wiped out the whole regiment. That was 2 columns worth of men in one disaster. And then they have the audacity to throw me in irons for fleeing.
Oh, I see.
But
so you're probably not welcome back there.
Well, depends on how busy they are. But yeah, anyhow, my uncle, who was also in those battles, the ones in which my father died, spoke highly of American capability. Said some good ships.
Yeah, well, we're coming along.
And are you currently in the Army, or?
No, not anymore. I spent my time in the service chasing Mexican bandits across the border.
Mexico, we lost some of those holdings and everything else. We lost the Philippines and all this to you guys.
Right.
So now you are the empire and we are not.
Well, no, the United States is not an empire. It's a republic.
Why don't you ask what Dr. Andrews thinks about that with his knowledge of the future? Are those words that they just say, or is that actual fact? No, he doesn't say any of that. But yeah, he's very curious about actual battle-specific things that the Americans are doing lately. So he's sort of quizzing you on your knowledge of that, right?
Right.
Not like their overall movements, but tactics.
Yeah, he's upgrading his tactics.
Right, yeah. Just wondering.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell him, as you know, basically the tactics worked out in our Civil War were then adopted by the rest of the world. And he saw the culmination of that in the Great War with the trenches. And
Yeah.
Now, if there's ever another war, I can't imagine how it will be fought.
But I know that the one after that will be fought with sticks and stones. Okay. Yeah, so eventually he drops back once he's gotten his fill of your American tactical knowledge. Somewhat disappointed to know that it was in like a different part of the world than he was expecting once he marked you as being an American one and having the bearing of a military man. But also, later that night, as you guys are breaking for camp, old Ray Flanagan, the Irish machine gunner, comes up to you, Mr. Wentworth. Is it true you be the whiskey man?
He's already through his jugs.
Do you mind if I have a wee dram?
Yeah, I'll give him some.
He doesn't seem drunk, though.
Okay.
What sort of whiskey is it now?
It's, normal kind. I don't know. Whatever.
You don't know. Did you just get some, like, probably, I don't know.
Just
the question is,
from home?
Is it
Cask of
whiskey,
Yeah.
or is it bourbon?
Right.
Because whiskey is...
Well, it's probably bourbon.
Yeah, that would probably be most, especially in,
Yeah.
like, in Prohibition, you know?
Right.
oh, yeah.
Well, so you pour him out a wee dram, as he says, and, you see he just has, like, a little metal thin glass, or cup, I should say.
Made with the blessed waters of the great Mississippi.
Yeah.
And he takes a draw from it, and he's, 'tis grand it is, not as grand as proper Irish, but still good, you know? And then he goes on his merry way.
All right. Yeah.
But he marked out in his head where the whiskey barrels, or the bourbon barrels are.
What was his name?
Ray Flanagan.
Ray Flanagan.
He's Marco Ramiro and him are the pair that man the Vickers gun should it ever need to come out. All right, so we come down for another night. You guys bed down. Let's have our Constitution rolls. I forgot that on the previous day.
You want both?
Just today. We'll say you were at your peak restedness, so we didn't have to worry about it too much for the first day.
Oh, come on. There we go. Constitution. Oh, good roll, B.
Extremely successful. I'll share some of it with Stanton to bring him even. It's like day 2 and I'm over. He's got his arm around my shoulder up and it went through.
The expedition is due.
There's not enough killing. I haven't shot anyone. And
I'm too tired.
Wentworth, is that you? I haven't shot anyone in nearly 2 months.
Yeah. Oh, there's plenty of targets up ahead in the sky.
Oh, I see him now. A whole field of frolicking children and women.
So you're not the young man you used to be. In fact, you celebrated your 50th birthday recently.
Yeah.
And Father Time will always extract his price. And you're feeling that now. But this is not necessarily out of the ordinary. It's
just a hard wake up.
It's just there's no way to condition yourself for what it feels like once you're on the expedition. Nothing can prepare you for actually being on the camel or walking on foot in that terrain. So you'll have to adjust to it.
Yeah.
But basically in game terms, you just gain a level of exhaustion. And what that means is if some check comes up during the day or that night, then,
was it penalty?
Penalty die on all skills, but not like attacks or your characteristic rolls. So if I ask for another Constitution, that'll be good.
So basically my whole character is fine and free from exhaustion penalty.
But if for some reason you have to decipher Latin, it will be even harder than the 1% you roll at. So, dear God.
Watch me double crit it.
The truth is here if I could but understand it. But yeah, so for those watching, most of the expedition is doing well. The way I handle it for your NPCs is I will grab some at random and check in on them.
Okay.
And in this case, it was your machine gunners, and they're doing just fine.
Yeah, so I'll be spending, once I set up my tent and get that all laid away, I'll be spending most of my time kind of walking around, rubbing at my back.
Yeah. Most of it is related to sitting on this kind of saddle that's on the camels because it due to their gait where they kind of meander this way and they don't have an even one, so it will shift. So you spend a lot of time like using your thighs to right it back in its place so you don't immediately topple over. So that's where a lot of it comes in, just the soreness from that. Different kind of saddle soreness than you might get from a horse. But where are we? I lost my train of thought. And looking at the porters and herdsmen that were foisted upon you by the king of Yemen.
Yeah.
Your experience is that the scrawny nature of these people can belie a sort of toughness.
Right.
That they're quite used to it and they do quite well.
Yeah, I was thinking I'll have like a little meeting every evening with Hadi and Jadi, and I'll have them report to me on the rest of their people and keep me apprised of any problems.
Yeah, go ahead and give me a social role of your choice that you might like to use in talking to them. This is just determining if they grow to like you or...
Okay. I guess...
They won't necessarily dislike you if you fail. You'll just be the person they report to.
Yeah, I guess my best social, intimidate, charm. Failed, but just barely.
Okay. So they don't really offer any additional information than what you ask for, right? So,
right, yeah.
You know, they just seem like distant, inscrutable figures, you know.
Yeah.
Not your friends, but they do report to you, and that is good enough for now. So give me a luck roll, each of you.
Is that at penalty or?
Nope.
No. Uh-oh.
So to make matters worse, Mr. Stanton, at some point in the night, just when you think you're about to reach your best sleep to recover from that
Exhaustion,
the area that you picked, you guys are in kind of like a low part of the land. It becomes damp, and it doesn't just happen to you. It happens to a bunch of people, but it's damp enough and wet enough from like some sudden runoff from the higher peaks that some snow or ice has accumulated. It runs down here, pools around you, so you have to move location, and a few other people around you do too, and you just don't get the same type of sleep you would require for that night from having to get up, be cold, wake up, move it all, make sure nothing's not soaked for what was on the ground, and you are stuck with that exhaustion for the day.
Next time, I'll just bloody well bring a snorkel out to this blasted desert and sleep through it. Good morning, Mr. Wentworth.
Yeah, he does look... So we'll close on the scene of Mr. Wentworth going to the normal morning meeting, the plan for the day, and seeing a well-worn Mr. Stanton. His expression completely different than normal.
So would that just be made at normal now?
Yeah, you will drop the bonus, basically, is what we'll do.
Yeah, I'll have to make him some coffee.
Right. All right, guys, thanks for playing.
No, thank you,
We'll
man.
continue the journey next time, and you can give out those skill rolls.
I'd already raised my psychology the max, hadn't I?
I'll open it up. I believe so. You have a few that are close, I think. This has been a Deathwatch production. Thank you for listening.